Hi everyone, I'm Bria. In this video, I'm going to be going over every book I gave 5 stars in 2024, so let's jump right in. So I have my laptop, bullet journal, and Kindle all right here, ready to go and ready to help me go through this list. So let's start out with a bang and probably my second favorite new read of the year. It's Powerless and then Reckless. So Powerless came out in March and then Reckless in July, and I read Powerless twice actually. I don't think Powerless came out in March. I read it in March for the first time and gave it 5 stars then, and then read it again in July right before Reckless came out, and then gave Reckless 5 stars as well. Sorry, I can't talk today. But these are both by Lauren Roberts, and they are classified as a young adult fantasy romance. And they had a Powerless has a 4.19 rating on Goodreads, and then Reckless has a 4.071. So again, my second favorite new read of the year, I would say, is Powerless. And then my next 5-star read was Wings So Wicked. So I first read it in May and gave it 5 stars, and then I read it again in August when the second book came out, which is Blood So Brutal. And I didn't quite give Blood So Brutal 5 stars. I think I gave it 4. Let me actually check in my journal. Oh, I actually gave Blood So Brutal 3 stars. That's very surprising to me. And I wasn't doing half ratings at this time, so maybe it's really like more of a 3.5 for me. But I'm not sure unless I were to reread it. I will say this series, I think it's only 2 books, so a duology I think it's called. Which are typically not my favorites because I really love world building, and when there's only like 1 or 2 books, I don't always feel like there's a chance to build as much of the world as like I would like. So it could just be that way. I know a lot of people probably prefer standalones or duologies just because they're easier to read. But I did give Wings So Wicked 5 stars, and I would say that's probably my third favorite new read of this year. Oh, and Wings So Wicked has a 3.82 rating on Goodreads. And I just realized my camera battery is about to die, so stand by for half a second. I'll be right back. Okay, and the next 2 books I gave 5 stars to are A Broken Promise and A Simple Truth, which I read in May. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I do not remember what either of these books are about. Apparently I love them because I gave them 5 stars and it's in my bullet journal, but yeah, I could not tell you. So let me look on Goodreads. A Broken Promise has 4 stars, and then A Simple Truth has 4.23. And I am seeing that it was or is a trilogy, so I must have rated the third one less than that. Let me look actually. Oh, maybe the third one isn't out yet because it doesn't look like I read it. Let me try looking it up on Kindle actually. Okay, this is just showing 2 books. Maybe she hasn't announced the third one yet. Next is House of Beating Wings, and this I believe is 4 books, and I gave the first one 4 stars, and then I don't think I gave 5 stars, and then I don't think I gave any of the others 5 stars. And this was one of them where I, hold on, let me find it first. Oh, it was a page I was on. So it looks like I gave the first one, House of Beating Wings, and then the second one, House of Pounding Hearts, 5 stars, and then the third one, House of Striking Oaths, 4 stars. Let me look it up to see if the 4th one isn't out yet. I could have sworn that there were 4 books in this. Let me see. Okay, there are 4. The 4th one is House of Shifting Tides, and it's already out. And then the 5th one is House of Burning Frost, which I actually haven't seen that yet. Let me see when that is coming out. That's coming out January 30th, so not too far away. Let me make sure this is on my list of upcoming releases. I'm wondering if I didn't read the 4th one. Oh yeah, I see it on my TBR list, and I don't know if you can see that, but I put an X by it. I may have just started to lose interest and then wanting to wait until the next book comes out. I've realized sometimes that I get a pretty strong mid-series slump, and if the last book is out already, I feel like I can push through because I know there's an ending coming, but a lot of times when it isn't out yet, and I know that I'm probably gonna have to reread it anyways when the next one comes out, I just end up DNFing it. So I do want to try to look up series more next year before I start them, and try to hold off on starting some brand new ones. There are always going to be some ones that I end up starting, like Quicksilver was one where I kept seeing it recommended, so I finally read it, and well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that was one where I didn't regret starting even though just one book is out. But I do remember that I started to regret the 5 stars for the first book. And second, as I started getting further down the series, I vaguely remember being a little frustrated with the female main character because I feel like she, at the beginning of the book, is pretty like naive and sheltered in a way, which is not uncommon. And then of course things happen and her world broadens, but I don't feel like she like matures as fast as I want her to. But maybe by the end of the 5th book she will have. And then let's look on Goodreads. House of Beating Wings got a 4.08 rating on Goodreads. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I read this in July. So for the next one, I reread some of my favorite books in, let me see, it was in August. So the first book is A Shadow in the Ember, and there is a second series from Blood and Ash that's in this world as well that is also one of my favorite series. I would rank it behind this one though. And this series occurs earlier in the timeline, which usually I feel like when there's 2 series on the same timeline and one is earlier and one is later, I usually end up liking the later one more, but I actually liked the earlier one more. So, and I love it. That's saying like is an understatement because I love this series. So the first book is A Shadow in the Ember. Second is A Light in the Flame. Third is A Fire in the Flesh. And then 4th is Born of Blood and Ash. And I actually haven't finished this one yet. It came out earlier this year and I started it, but I don't want to say goodbye to the main characters because I love them so much, and the main male character is one of my favorite book boyfriends ever. So I've read these quite a few times. So I read the first 2 for the first time in November of 2022, and then in September of 2023, and then I read the 3 again in November of 2023. I think that's when the 3rd one came out. And then I read the first 3 again. Sorry, this is getting confusing. But I read the 3 again in August. And then, like I said, I still haven't finished the 4th one, but I'm hoping to finish it by the end of this year or sometime soon. And all 3 of these books are 5 stars. I know sometimes like with series, like for example, ACOTAR, the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'd probably rate like a 4 or 4.5. And then the second book, I would actually rate a 5. And then if I were to average all the books in the series, it would equal a 5. So it's pretty common that like the rating fluctuates within the series, but this is one series where it gets 5s across the board. And if I had to guess, I would guess that the 4th one is probably going to get 5 stars as well. And I actually feel like I've read this series more times than I have written down. I went through my Kindle history this weekend and my Apple Books purchase history and tried to fill in the gaps for some of the books I've read. And I did it for this year and then 2023 and 2022. And some of it was guesses. Like I put everything into Goodreads and I put dates, but the dates, like the start date was pretty solid, but then the end date, you know, I was guessing on that. And I feel like I missed some rereads because I couldn't find any like data for it in Apple Books or my Kindle history. If you didn't know, your Kindle history just shows the last time you downloaded it. And so for a lot of these books, I've downloaded them because I do Instagram posts where I'll post like the first lines of books or the dedications, or things like that. So I will reread or re-download books a lot to look at those. And so I have like some, like there was one day I was working on it recently, and so it's like 20 books I downloaded on like December 19th or something. So it kind of messes with the data, which I didn't realize, or else I would have figured figured out a different way to do it. But yeah, I feel pretty good about like going through all that data and putting together a timeline, but I feel like I probably read it twice in 2023 because I feel like every few months I'll come across a book boyfriend that I don't love as much, and I'm like, man, I wish he was more like this guy, and then I'll go reread at least the first book. Sometimes I just like want to reread their starting scenes together, the female main character and the male main character, with like their banter and everything. And even the female main character is one of my favorite main characters ever. So I will stop talking about this book because I could talk about it this whole video. But next we're gonna go over my favorite new read of the year, which was Quicksilver. So I read this in September. Actually, I just realized I didn't go through the Goodreads ratings for A Shadow in the Ember and the other two books. Let me know if y'all like hearing these. I feel like I'm trying to provide like a second opinion for y'all than mine, just in case it differs from mine, but I also could just leave it out. So A Shadow in the Ember is 4.46, A Light in the Flame is 4.5, and A Fire in the Flesh is 4.11. Now let's look up Quicksilver, and I don't even think I've been doing the authors. A Shadow in the Ember is by Jennifer Armentrout, House of Beating Wings, Olivia Wildenstein, A Broken Promise, Tatiana Walker, Wings So Wicked, Emily Blackwood, and then I already mentioned Powerless, Lauren Roberts. I do know there are several books called Powerless out, so I don't want y'all to accidentally read the wrong one. So Quicksilver is by Callie Hart, and this has a 4.45 rating on Goodreads. But this is a great one, and this second book actually is not out yet. I think I have it written down. Maybe not. Let me look on my Kindle. I think it came out this year, so I don't know if the second one is announced yet. It just says this title will be released on November 18th. 2025. I actually need to write that down because I don't have that on my list. And last I checked, I don't think she had announced that. So almost a year from now, but I will be very excited when that comes out. So I hit a like 5-star jackpot in my 5th book log of the year. I know you can't quite see that, but I love how it's decorated with stars around it, and I happen to read a lot of 5 stars. Not all of them on here are 5 stars, but quite a few. And some of these are a reread. The first one, which is actually a new read, is A Crown of Tears and Treason. This one I loved. It had a plot twist at the very ending, and I feel like I knew that something was coming, but I couldn't figure out what, and it completely surprised me, and it ended like, I'm so upset about how it ended, like in a good way, but I'm like, I need to know more, like I need them to fix everything. And I don't know when the second one is coming out. Let me look it up actually. And this one is interesting because it's enemies to lovers, but it's not like a strong enemies to lovers, but things happen in the first book that like prolong the enemies to lovers in a way, which I always think is very interesting. So the second one, A Crown of Victory and Vengeance, is going to come out February 25th, and I need to add this to my list as well. I guess all of these just got announced recently, but this is very exciting. And then let me look it up on Goodreads. This has a 4.26 rating on Goodreads, and the author is Vera Ray. I wonder if I'm ever gonna see a book that has like more than 4.75 on here, because I feel like it's probably pretty rare, but I would definitely add this to your list. And then the next one, which has a similar title but is a somewhat different book, The Crown of Oaths and Curses. So it has 2 books out. I'm blanking on how the second book ended, but the first one I loved, and this was like a true enemies to lovers. I feel like a lot of times when books are labeled as enemies to lovers, they're just like rivals to lovers or like soft enemies, like they're not truly willing to like kill each other. And in this book they were true enemies, and it was very interesting to see the progression. I don't want to spoil anything, but it was like just a really great read. So I did give the second book 4 stars, which I don't think should dissuade you from reading this because again, I often have a mid-series slump, but I definitely gave the first book a full 5 stars. And then rounding out my list of all the books I gave 5 stars to in 2024 is the ACOTAR series. So I know I said earlier that A Court of Thorns and Roses I would give like a 4.5 to, but now that I know the entire plot and everything that happens, it's a 5 stars for me. Like when I read it the first time, I didn't give it a rating then, but I probably wouldn't have given it that just because I wasn't quite sure how things were going to end up. But now that I know everything and I have my little moments and interactions that I can like treasure, this is definitely a 5 stars for me. So if you're not familiar with the series, it's A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and then A Court of Silver Flames. So I first read these in May of 2022, and then I'm not sure when else, although I know I've reread these a lot of times. And then I reread them in October, and it felt so good to have how many books is this? 5 books? 4 or 5? Yeah, a 5-book run of 5 stars. It just really like resets my palette and raises my expectations, which is good and bad, but you know, we're gonna count it as good since it gives me so much joy. So this is by Sarah J. Maas, and let me look up the rating on Goodreads. And it's kind of a completed series. Like you do get the end of the story by the 4th book, and then the 5th book follows 2 different characters. However, she has said that the next book is going to be following another one of the secondary characters, and then someone told me today via my Instagram DMs, I need to look it up, but apparently she's contracted to write at least three more books. I don't know, I would have to ask the girl if it was specifically for ACOTAR or if it was just in general, because they could be for her other series. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is a 4.18. Let me see what Mist and Fury is, because this is my favorite book of the series. 4.65. Okay, I think this is the highest rating I've ever seen on Goodreads, and for good reason, because this definitely was my favorite book of the series. What's the next one? Wings and Ruin, 4.47. Frost and Starlight, 3.74. That's surprising. Also, I love when books are named like a blank of blank and blank, and it's often court, but sometimes it's like a different word. But I can tell, like, I feel like I've heard some people say that they don't love that because it's not very unique. However, I love it because I feel like when I see a book with that title, or like even certain covers, like there's a certain look to fantasy romance books. Like when I see that title structure or the cover design, I like immediately will know that I will like the book, and it makes things like easier when I'm trying to find new books. Okay, and then A Court of Silver Flames has a 4.47 rating. So overall, I read 17 books, or 18 if you count the second House of Beating Wings book, I can't remember the title, in 2024 that I gave 5 stars to. Let me do the math. I think I've read 97 or 98 books right now. So we'll do 17 and 97, 17%. I guess that sounds, oh yeah, that should be easy math, but I'm not great at math. So about 17% of the books I read this year, I gave 5 stars to. That being said, I'm grateful I found so many incredible new books this year, and that I was able to reread some of my favorites. So if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. And always remember that you are pure magic.